All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, arts advocates, and welcome to Americans for the Arts and the Arts Action Fund's office hours with our arts advocacy team. My name is Morgan Fernari, manager at the Arts Action Fund. I am a 29-year-old white woman with freckles and wavy hair pulled up into a bun. I'm wearing a white t-shirt and a collared yellow blouse and sitting with some artwork behind me in my home in Miami, Florida. Americans for the Arts is committed to accessibility, and this includes our speakers offering visual descriptions of themselves, which makes the webinar more accessible for audience members that are blind or have low vision. Additionally, there are Zoom-generated closed captions for audience members. You can access the closed captions by selecting the CC button in your Zoom toolbar. This webinar also includes live American Sign Language interpretation, which means you can access this by clicking on the globe icon, also in the Zoom toolbar, and select ASL interpretation. We welcome our interpreters today, Taylin and Lucy, and thank them for their help. So we want you to ask your questions, and it is the last office hours of the year, so please get them all out. You have access to the Q&A feature also in your Zoom toolbar. That way you can ask our speakers questions throughout the webinar. We will do our best to answer all questions either by responding through the Q&A or along during the allotted Q&A segments of the webinar. The webinar will also be recorded and be available to watch and share in the next week. You'll also be able to find additional resources on our office hours landing page. We'll share the link with you in the chat. In the event that we don't answer all of your questions today, please feel free to reach out to Americans for the Arts Public Policy Manager, Olivia Tarpley, so we can keep in touch. All right, so today's session, we're so excited because it'll be featuring a conversation between Americans for the Arts Public Policy Manager, Olivia Tarpley, and Deputy Chief of Staff and Legislative Director for Congresswoman Chellie Pingree, Evan Johnston. Evan will share news to date on fiscal year 2026 funding and discuss actions advocates can take to ensure arts and culture funding is protected in the coming weeks. At the end, I will be back to share additional information about how you can take action and how you can continue sharing your stories with us. So now just showcasing our staff speakers, it is Olivia Tarpley and myself, Morgan Fernari, and our guest speaker, Evan Johnston. So thank you all so much for being here, and I welcome Olivia and Evan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Morgan, and good afternoon, everyone. We hope that you all are doing well and appreciate you being here with us this afternoon. Like Morgan said, my name is Olivia Tarpley. I'm the Public Policy Manager here at Americans for the Arts. I am a white woman with dark brown hair pulled back in a little ponytail this afternoon, and I've got a patterned leopard print shirt on today. I'm seated in my office in Washington, D.C. And it is my great pleasure to welcome our guest, Evan Johnston, like Morgan said, Deputy Chief of Staff and Legislative Director for Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. Hey, Evan, good to see you.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me today. Hi, everyone. I'm Evan Johnston. Like Olivia said, I am a staffer in the office for Congresswoman Chellie Pingree from Maine's 1st District. I'm a white woman in my 30s with auburn hair and a green sweater. I'm sitting in my office here in Rayburn House office building. It has been a really crazy year. I know these office hours have been super helpful for arts advocates in Maine and elsewhere. So happy to try to shed whatever light I can on how we're wrapping up the year here and hopefully try to be helpful to you all.
Well, thank you, Evan. We're glad to hear that the office hours have been helpful to Maine's 1st District for sure, and really appreciate everything that you and your boss do to protect arts funding at the federal level. We know that, put lightly, it has not been an easy year. Lots of truly unprecedented actions and news. So thanks for helping us try to make sense of it all as we go
We're
into
all in the
year.
same boat here. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so just to get us started on our November office hours webinar, we had just finished the longest government shutdown in history. And, Congress was trying to make sense of like FY26 appropriations and kind of picking up the pieces there. And there was a possibility that the interior bill was going to be included in a minibus. There was kind of some flip-flopping back and forth, but we
Yeah.
understand now that this is kind of what the plan is going to be. But can you give us an update on where we are now for FY
Sure.
2026 appropriations and specifically NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and National Endowment for the Humanities funding?
Surely. Yeah. So, just by way of background, my boss, Congresswoman Pingree, is the ranking member on Interior Appropriations Subcommittee. So, what that basically means is that she is kind of the lead Democrat in the House who is tasked with putting together the funding bill that covers many of our cultural agencies, including the endowments, including the Smithsonian, including the National Gallery for the Art, et cetera. Um, so this is a leadership role that my boss takes very seriously. Funding for the cultural agencies is one of her biggest priorities as part of that role. Um, but as the lead Democrat, she is in the minority. And so while we definitely have a role in making a push for a bill that fulfills our priorities, we don't always have the biggest say right now in how the Congress is considering appropriations bills. We'd love to get all of this done by January 30th, which is our kind of current operating deadline for fiscal year 2026 appropriations. But we are a little bit at the mercy of the majority right now. So what I can share is, as it sounds like maybe you covered in the last office hours, we luckily came out of the shutdown in the middle of November. A little bit of sort of context for how we do appropriations in the Congress is we've split up all of the discretionary spending that covers just about every government agency into 12 different bills. And they're sort of grouped by subject matter. So when we came out of the shutdown, we passed fiscal year 26 appropriations for 3 out of the 12 bills. So that, of course, leaves us up with a lot of work to do before January 30th. So right now, there is a bit of a kind of a dispute or ongoing conversation between Republicans in the Senate and Republicans in the House about how to group the remaining 9 bills going forward. There are some conversations about, well, maybe it's a 3-bill package or a 5-bill package. It seems pretty universal at this point that interior appropriations, which is our bill in question, is probably going to be in this next package if there is one. So the dispute is not really about interior, but about other different pieces and how they fit together. And so what we are waiting on mostly right now is what's called an allocation. And so within all of those 12 bills, Congress needs to decide basically how much money each bill will have to spend on the different agencies and programs that are within its jurisdiction. And so we can't really get started in negotiating different funding levels until we know how much money is going to be we're going to be able to spend with the interior bill. So that's kind of our next step right now is waiting on that allocation number, and hopefully it will be robust enough that we're able to protect our priority agencies and our priority issues, and we can have a good, strong negotiation going forward.
That's super helpful, Evan. And in terms of getting our heads around like where we are in the process.
Yeah.
Just to go a little deeper on the subject of allocations, is it
Hmm.
right that the House is getting one allocation, one top line, if you will, and then
Hmm.
the Senate is getting another? In the event that those two are different? What can advocates expect as far as like how those differences might be reconciled?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's all subject to negotiation. So, the kind of leadership within the Appropriations Committee. Right now, that is um, Chairman Tom Cole, who is the lead Republican in the House, and Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who is the lead Republican in the Senate, are trying to come up with those high-level allocations. And then what happens when Interior is given our allocation number? Then my boss, Chellie Pingree, and then Mike Simpson from Idaho, who is the lead Republican in the House, um, and Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, who is the lead Republican in the Senate, and then Senator Jeff Merkley from Oregon, who is the lead Democrat in the Senate. Then those members and their staff will all get together and look at the bill holistically and start really genuinely just negotiating, passing offers back and forth. Um, and we all have our priority issues, and it's just a matter of coming to an agreement that for the most part we can live with at the end of the day. Again, this is the Congress where my boss is in the minority, so we'll be pushing hard for priorities like the endowments, but it's hard to give a real crystal ball sense of where we'll land before we get started. But you asked about what advocates can do. I mean, particularly if you have connections with those four members or other members on the Appropriations Committee, right now is the time to be sharing or reiterating, because I know so many of you all have been engaged over the course of the year, reiterating that keeping the endowments and other cultural agencies well funded is still on your mind, still part of your priority list, and something that you're not going to let them off the hook on, no matter what happens as the course of these negotiations go on.
Awesome. That's super helpful. So it sounds like there's still a lot that has to happen in the next.
But I will say,
Mhm.
these are the kinds of things, we've been doing this work all year. So, and these members and staffers have worked together for a long time. And so it is very possible that we'll be able to move quickly if everyone is aligned and we are kind of in favorable conditions. So it's always hard to tell. I've worked in Congress for over 10 years now, and I try I always say I try not to make too many predictions. I've learned that for sure. But it's possible that we could have a bill to consider by January.
Awesome. And just so that we're kind of preparing for all sorts of scenarios, in the event that, things with this mini bus package aren't shaking out,
Hmm.
January 30th is the deadline. So is
Correct.
there's possibility maybe even for another government shutdown. Not asking you to predict that, but
I
just,
know it is
yeah.
technically possible. Yes, if
Okay.
we do not pass additional appropriations um, legislation by January 30th, then those agencies that haven't been funded could shut down again. Yes, I desperately hope that that doesn't happen. Um, but yes, those agencies that were not included in the three bills that we've already passed could be at risk again. Yes.
Okay. Again, super helpful, Evan.
Hmm.
So we know that we've got these FY fiscal year 2026 funding items that need to get
Hmm.
wrapped up. And we know that typically, and we know that this hasn't been a normal year, but
Yeah.
often, traditionally, Congress begins the next fiscal year's process in like late February or early March.
Yeah.
So if we're kind of anticipating that again,
Hmm.
do you have any advice for advocates as far as like closing the loop on fiscal year 2026, even
Hmm.
if fiscal year 2027 is getting started?
Yeah, trust me. Just know this is frustrating for everyone when this happens. I know last year, we didn't close fiscal year 25 until March, and then turned right around and started fiscal year 26. So have a little bit of mercy on us congressional staffers because that's a good turnaround for us too. Um, I know it can feel a little bit um, confusing, but I think my best advice, honestly, and I know this is something that I have to works with you all as advocates on, is just building a consistent relationship with your member's office. So, you know, you don't have to feel uh, necessarily so much stress about reaching out at the exact right times because they know you and they know that this is one of your priorities and they'll have you in mind when this process starts again is they'll say, oh, I know that this person is going to be on me about this this letter or making NEA funding our priorities. So they'll already be thinking that through. Um, so, I think that's my best advice as these timelines are crazy and you can't always really plan for them. Um, we don't set them, and so I can't always plan for them. Um, so just keeping that conversation going, I think is my recommendation.
Great. Thank you. Before we shift away from the cultural agencies, I am seeing an audience question um, about the Institute of Museum and Library
Mm-hmm.
Services. And the question is, where does the appropriation stand for the funding for the Institute of
Yeah.
Museum and Library Services? Is this one of the three uh, or is this one of the three determined for allocation or part of the outstanding? It sounds
Mm.
like they're trying
No,
to get,
that's a good question.
yeah,
Yes. So, IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services, is again a big priority of my bosses, but it actually doesn't fall under the Interior Appropriations Bill, which I know definitely was something I had to learn when I first started getting up to speed on this. It falls under the Labor, HHS, and Education Appropriations Bill, which I know covers a lot of different things that your advocates also care about. Um, and so that is currently pending, as I think the question put it. That was not in the three that passed. It's kind of part of the open question about whether this labor HHS ed bill will be included in the next package of appropriations bills. That's kind of like the big controversial issue right now is whether labor H and defense will be included along with interior and a couple others. But it's definitely top of mind and I know, there have been efforts on both sides, House and Senate, to protect that funding level going into FY26 final negotiations. So it's on our minds for sure.
great. Thank you, Evan.
Mhm,
And that's actually a great segue for us to kind of shift into some other issues that we
mhm,
know arts and arts education advocates are thinking about. So we learned in kind of mid-November, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, that the Department of Education was announcing 6 new interagency agreements.
mhm,
And this is the second round of those interagency agreements that the administration has announced. The first one was in um, earlier this year, I think in the summertime, maybe, for career and technical education. But these 6 agreements are impacting a lot of programs and a lot of funding. So, specifically for our arts education advocates, we know that the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, which encompasses title funding, parts 1, 2, and 4, all of which can be used for arts education, that's
mhm.
being moved over to the Department of Labor. Additionally, our competitive grant program, the Assistance for Arts Education program, is headed to the Department of Labor. So, we know this is raising a lot of questions for advocates, for
For
nonprofits.
members and their
Everyone
staff, yes.
yes, everyone's
Yeah,
got a lot of questions about this.
yeah.
So I know that concerns about like the increase in federal bureaucracy, potentially less consultation with subject matter experts. So my question for you, Evan, is how are members of Congress specifically responding to these interagency agreements, and what might advocates be able to do to push back on
Yeah,
these actions?
absolutely. It's a great question. Well, and certainly it sits on kind of the broader context of this Trump administration deciding to close the Department of Education. And that is a ridiculous sentence, and I'm sorry that I'm saying it. And this goes back to what you said at the beginning of this conversation, Olivia, which is that this has been an unprecedented year in a lot of ways. And it's been a really massive frustration from my boss, and I know from others, that the majority in Congress right now is, in large part chosen not to exercise their oversight authority over these issues. And so we're doing everything we can to support kind of a multi-pronged strategy to fight back here. But certainly, I would just start off by saying it has been a real sort of abdication of Congress, and our constitutional duties, that we've gotten so far down this road. Um, First and foremost, I would say, the legal strategies are ongoing. I know there are several lawsuits, not just about the broader Department of Education closures, but I believe there was one specifically about the IAAs, the interagency agreements. Um, and so that when those lawsuits are successful, our previous question asked about IMLS. We've seen that the lawsuits having to do with those grant cancellations, and they've been successful, and that has not made everything better at the agency by any stretch, but that has been effective in pressuring the administration to change course for now, at least. And so, we're doing our best to support that legal strategy, because I think that is, in a lot of ways, our best way to at least put a halt on these things uh, before they proceed. Um, Many members have been writing letters to the administration trying to raise the issue, or raise the profile of the issue with constituents. We all live in this world. The amount of news we're all taking in at any moment is so crazy that it can be difficult, I know, for people to focus on one priority thing. And your members of Congress are no different. We're hearing all kinds of different things. And so, a lot of folks are trying to raise the alarm on this and what it means. Um, I would say that, well, surely, and again, this is my bias, but the best thing you can do is sort of be consistently in touch with your senators and your members of Congress about your concerns. My recommendation for those of you who are maybe represented by Republicans who have not, to this point, been willing to be as explicitly opposed to things like the IAA agreements than my boss has been, um, is I would recommend just continuing to raise questions about the very local impacts of these decisions, right? How are you worried that this shift is going to materially impact educators and students in the district that the member represents, right? And I think we can all sort of guess at what the operational nightmare of this is going to be, right? We're adding administrative layers, potential costs. It's going to be complicated for grantees. There are going to be a lot of questions. And who at Department of Labor has the expertise to run these programs? This is why the Department of Education has existed for many decades. And to sort of erase that history and expect Department of Labor to be able to pick it up, no problem, is to me, at minimum, very worthy of congressional oversight. And we've seen, thinking about some different administration proposals, like there's an effort at the um, Department of Agriculture to relocate a lot of the employees and programs that have been housed in Washington, D.C. for many decades. And so what we've seen from congressional Republicans there is maybe not a willingness to come out, full bore opposition to that, but they have a lot of questions about how that will impact their farmers. Right. And so I think that is maybe a helpful model when thinking about these Department of Education moves, is raising questions, thinking local, making sure that the members have in their mind that this is not some kind of hypothetical pushing papers, spreadsheets thing in DC. This is something that will have very tangible impacts day to day on their constituents.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, what's that some sort of like everything national is local, or
Yeah,
something
absolutely.
local news. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really great. It sounds like it's important to keep, even though we know that, advocacy is a long game, and it's all about like relationships and building those relationships. It
Hmm.
really does sound like this is the time to kind of lean in and share those
Yep.
stories. So that's really helpful to hear as we're gearing
Hmm.
up for 2026. Just one other kind of specific question here, Evan. You were talking about the like multi-prong approach related
Hmm.
to kind of responding to these interagency agreements. Can you
Yeah.
tell us if there are like avenues through the appropriations process or additional
Hmm.
congressional actions that Congress might pursue to limit changes at the Department of Education? I think a lot
Sure.
of our advocates know that, to actually dismantle the department would take like a Senate vote, but we're also cognizant of the fact that this administration has not responded to tradition or law in some cases.
Yeah.
So,
So
um,
true.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something to watch as we continue this FY26 process. So, our labor HHS education bill will have to lay out how Congress sees the Department of Education and the associated programs being funded. And so, that will certainly be, I think, an area for negotiation. Um, both bills, to my knowledge, do still acknowledge the Department of Education. And so I wouldn't, I think there is space for Congress to be asserting itself um, and our power of the purse just simply by saying we're funding the Department of Education to do this particular work, right? And we're not formalizing or codifying this IAA via appropriations. And I think that is certainly a statement unto itself, but my boss and her colleagues will be fighting for more explicit language to oppose.
great. Thanks, Evan.
Hmm.
I want to be mindful of your time. I know that while the holidays are coming up, it's busy, busy, but just to kind of get us in a way like oriented for 2026, we know it's
Yeah.
another big year, especially given that it's an election year. Can
Hmm.
you talk to how the work of Congress like might be different at all? Maybe any different
Yeah.
timelines? Just so that we kind of get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Yes. So yes, Olivia, you're exactly right. We're headed into a midterm election year. Um, Traditionally, what that means is that Congress does start to slow down in terms of big, legislative efforts or projects by the summer. And then a lot of members spend time back in their districts um, looking to campaign. Um, so that still means we have to get sort of our normal work done, or it should. So that means we're headed into the fiscal year 2027 appropriations process. There are a handful of different bills that we do every year, like the National Defense Authorization Bill or the Water Resources Development Act. And I anticipate that those processes will at least get started on them next year. Um, but there usually isn't kind of like a lot of sort of big legislative push past the spring. Now, again, I don't make any predictions. I told you that already. So anything is possible, especially in this Congress. Um, we're certainly having an ongoing healthcare conversation here. My boss feels very strongly about extending ACA enhanced premium tax credits. But again, that is an evolving conversation that sort of changes by the day. So it's possible we might be doing more healthcare work going into the beginning of the year. Um, we very well could see another reconciliation process. So folks may remember that was the HR 1 or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or like my boss likes to call it, the Big Ugly Bill. Um, we could see another kind of attempt at that process next year. We'll just sort of have to see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Evan, we really appreciate your insights. We have
Yeah,
two audience questions for you.
sure.
One from our friend Phoebe Stein. Hi, Phoebe.
Hi, Phoebe.
Does amazing work for the humanities. We're lucky to know her. I believe this came up when we were talking interagency agreements,
Hmm.
and Phoebe was referencing the transfer of Native American education funding from the Department of Interior, excuse me, from the Department of Education to
Hmm.
the Department of Interior, and how might that affect funding for the Department of Interior? Do you know if Senator Murkowski is opposed to this at all? We know that she is the chair of that subcommittee that handles that
Hmm.
bill. Do you have insights on that, Evan?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for those who are unfamiliar, the Interior Bill does already have jurisdiction over the Bureau of Indian Education, which covers a lot of the education work on reservation lands and in higher education. Um, but there is an office at Department of Education that also works on tribal education issues. So we're keeping a close eye on it. One thing about these negotiations is that it can be very challenging to include pieces uh, into the final bill that haven't already been included on either the House side or the Senate side. Does that make sense? So even if it is an administration priority, sometimes there's just not a way to sort of incorporate it based on the two different pieces of legislation that we're um, negotiating over. So I suspect that trying to add new things like that um, is going to face challenges already, but we're feeling very it's definitely on our radar, and we'll continue to keep a close eye on it as we move through this process.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Our last question is related to the America 250 recognition. So the
Mhm.
question is, how big do we anticipate America 250 is going to be? Are there efforts to proactively counter the quote unquote manifest destiny ideology through arts and education? I'm already seeing
Yeah.
concerning language and activities. I guess just quickly, I'll say from Americans for the Arts perspective, we know that the 250th anniversary was coming no matter who won in 2024.
Right.
but we know that this administration is taking a lot of steps to really control that narrative. So we know that we're going to be trying to uplift arts and arts education, arts and culture from every community, especially communities that are marginalized. So I know that we have that commitment, but Evan, are you hearing other things about the recognition, or like, are there
Mhm.
things that even the Congresswoman is doing in district next year with America 250?
Sure. Yeah. And Olivia, I just echo what you said. I mean, um, this has been on Congress's radar for many, many years. And, we established kind of a congressional advisory body on it well before the election last year. And so, my boss is absolutely concerned about how this administration has kind of co-opted those existing efforts that I think we're really excited about, and that I know a lot of local organizations across the country have been making plans for many years. And so I think it is going to be a careful balance between, wanting to celebrate that landmark and, um, not wanting to sort of take that away from folks. But also, I think being outspoken in the ways that my boss might disagree with how the administration is going about it. Um, and, you know, I think we're very open to feedback from the community and advocates about what you're seeing that is concerning. Um, and we want to be holistic in how we approach it, and so we can't do that without your thoughts. So sharing that with AFTA, sharing that with your members, sharing that with us, that's all very welcome.
Great. Well, Evan, I know we don't make predictions, but if there's one thing that's for sure, it's going to be another big and interesting and, you know, I'm sure unprecedented year next year. So we really appreciate you telling us what you do know, and also for being a
Course.
champion for the arts and culture and humanities on Capitol Hill. And of course, our thanks always to the Congresswoman as well. We look forward to continuing the good
Yeah.
work together.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful for AFTA, and I'm very grateful for all of you who join these office hours. I could not do my job without all of you. Um, and it makes a huge difference that you're here and you're willing to commit your time during, what I know is always a really busy time of year, but also throughout the year. You're making a big difference. And thank you.
Great. Thanks again, Evan. We hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Maybe get a little bit of rest in too.
Headed to Maine soon. That's the best part of it. Great.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again, Evan. Take care.
All right. What a great conversation. Thank you both for that. I think we just always learn so much in these sessions, and we thank our guest speakers so much. What an incredible year of people coming together to have these kinds of discussions. We're so excited that we've had so many incredible guest speakers with us. And thank you, Olivia, to our amazing staff who are always just ready to go. So, we really appreciate it, and we've loved chatting with everybody this year and getting your questions. Please continue to ask. Please continue to connect with Americans for the Arts and the Arts Action Fund in the coming year. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to understand what's happening on the ground in your communities. That's how we do our job the best that we possibly can. It's because of you. So I just wanted to reiterate that as we move in. I feel like it's so funny. We keep laughing at the concept of like an unprecedented year, but we've been having them for the last 6 years. So it's so insane. So thank you everyone for holding strong and enduring through it all. And we're going to keep doing that. I'm going to share some closing slides of how we can take action. All right. So first of all, there are two quick actions you can take today that, of course, always make a real impact. We've drafted a letter entitled "Support at least $207 million for the NEA and NEH today." It takes less than 2 minutes to send, and it goes directly to your senators and House of Representatives. Personalized messages from constituents are one of the most effective tools we use in federal advocacy. They want to hear from you. We are uplifting your voices as much as we can, but really they are here to serve you. So make sure you're personalizing those messages and really sharing your specific arts and culture stories with them to put the messaging over the top. We also have a simple call script for you to read, and it takes less than 60 seconds, but congressional offices really track every single one and they report it back to their leadership. So when they hear from us in large numbers, it moves votes. So keep remembering that and keep telling your story. The links on this slide will take you to both resources, so please take action and share it with your networks. Your voice truly helps protect the arts on a national level, and I know Olivia has put that link in the chat. Um, and our next slide here, you'll find all past office hours recordings throughout the whole year. I think we had almost 17 office hours this year. We're really proud of that. We're really proud to have connected so much with you all this year. And we're excited to see you again in the new year. Resources and everything, the recording for this webinar will also be found on this link. Just give me a couple of days and I will get it up there so you can share it with your networks who missed out on today's webinar. And then just before we wrap up, I'm sure you have heard this already from Americans for the Arts emails and our other office hours, but I'm going to shout it out again. I want to invite you to share with us your powerful story. So it's called 50 Stories and 50 States. That's our campaign. These stories connect us and they show who we are and how the arts and humanities have shaped our communities and our lives. And at a time when federal arts and humanities funding, especially the NEA and NEH, is under pressure, your stories matter more than ever. And that's why we've launched this storytelling campaign to highlight how creativity strengthens our democracy, it fuels our economy, and impacts everyday lives. We're asking people across the country to share a 30-second video about what the arts and humanities mean to them. And you can participate by recording the short video on your phone and uploading it using the link in the chat and on the screen. Share it with your networks too. Artists, educators, veterans, small business owners, community leaders. We want to hear from everyone. Our goal isn't just about the 50 stories or necessarily the 50 states. It's about hundreds of voices showing why the arts and humanities are essential to America's future, whether it be a state, a district, or a jurisdiction. We want everyone to be involved and included. Your voice really matters in all of these facets, whether it be through our letter writing, through calling, your own advocacy back at home, and sharing your story. And we hope you'll join us. Thank you all again so much. That's a close on office hours for 2025, and we hope you have a beautiful holiday season full of creativity, art, and so much love. Thank you again so much. Goodbye.